The Hustle Share podcast is brought to you by AWS, the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. Use AWS now to lower your business costs, become more agile, and for faster innovation. Apply now to get $1,000 free credits at hustleshare.com/AWS. Also by TagCash. Spend, play, earn, and build a mobile wallet super app for your startup. Go now to hustleshare.com/tagcash to apply and get your startup's mobile wallet. And Caliber is the easiest, most convenient way to get hired. Caliber tailor fits the perfect job for you based on your unique skills. Hire the best people for your company at www.caliber.com and use the promo code HustleShare. Caliber, where jobs find you.
Welcome to the third edition of the Hustle Share Playbook. My name is Ronster, and I'm your host. And this playbook is powered by AWS, the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. We are a proud affiliate of the Podcast Network Asia, but before we begin, we'd like to remind you that this playbook contains not safe for work language, so make sure there are no kids when you're listening to this. Because today we have a very well-respected startup mentor who's helped hundreds of startups here in the Philippines in every facet imaginable. But today we're going to have him to talk about how to validate your startup idea. And his name is Pajo. And we're lucky to have Paul because he's done this thing so many times in helping startups validate their idea and also corporations adopt the lean startup methodology. And today, Paul is going to walk us through the step-by-step process of how founders should validate their idea without even building anything yet. And not just that, Paul is also going to cite concrete examples of how local startups here in the Philippines did it. And make sure to take down notes because Paul is going to share a ton of resources that you can use to get this hustle going. So if you're ready to learn how to validate your startup idea, let's begin this playbook right now. Welcome to the third Hustle Share Playbook. We finally got him. This over the past past year. I've been serendipitously also trying to get this guy on the show because I don't know anybody who's more qualified to actually talk about startups than this guy. And finally, we have on the show for the playbook, we have Mr. Pageman, Paul Pajo. Yeah, that's so much energy. Thank you, Pageman, for your energy.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay. So, Paul, again, I don't know anybody who can talk about this topic better than you do because you've probably taught thousands of entrepreneurs and corporates about this topic. But Paul, what's our play today?
We're going to talk about MVP validation, minimum viable
Not min
product.
money, but nani panghi.
Yeah, or just product validation or validating your idea.
There you go. So this is, again, a lot of people, a lot of listeners in Hustle Share. Also, it's a mix. There's a lot of experienced founders, and also there's a lot of people who are right on the uptick. You know, the entrepreneurs or the first-time founders. And this thing, we had to go through this so many times because back then, and when we first met, 2011, 2012, there was no such playbook.
That's true.
And now we have almost a decade's worth of playbooks that experiences not just what to do, and we'll cite also perfect examples of how other startups or how we did it ourselves that can help you out. Okay, so Paul, when you talk about idea validation, what are the first things that you need to do?
Okay, so you need to backpedal and realize why you have this idea now, right? Because when we created businesses maybe 20 years ago, the first step, I remember when my mom and dad would like set up business, the first thing you needed was a feasibility plan, right? So, and now it became a business plan.
Okay.
The reason, because to set up a business 20 years ago, a few decades ago,
Right.
you needed a lot of resources, and if you make a mistake, then that's a lot of money down the drain.
True.
Right? So what happens is the last 10 years in the Philippine startup ecosystem,
Okay.
there's a lot of resources available now. For example, you now have Amazon and all these things, right? So now,
AWS, by the way, if you want $1,000
Yep.
free credits, just go to hustleshare.com/AWS.
or Azure, GCP, just to be agnostic about it,
Okay,
right?
but AWS.
So what happened was it became very very cheap to actually do a startup. So the pendulum swung, right? So from
Right.
needing a lot of resources. I remember like the number like I think 1997 or something.
Wow.
I think there was a number like, oh, it's cheap now to set up something like Excite.com. It was like $3 million. Like I
What?
read somewhere
Are you
like
kidding me?
it was cheap, meaning for that time. So
3 million.
yeah. So in other words, if you're raising money for 3 million, you
Yeah.
can set up. Now, of course, now you can for $100, right? If you have a AWS, you can do a lot of experiments. If you have a Facebook page and all this stuff. So what happened was the pendulum swung from. It was very hard to create a business around an idea. You really needed resources and set up the business plan.
Right.
To every person now just tries to do a startup from their idea, and a lot of times they make mistakes. So in other words, the pendulum has to swing somewhere back, right? And basically, how do we have a method to our madness? In other words, most entrepreneurs, you have to be a little bit crazy to be even doing a startup. But
Yep.
how do you make sure that what you're trying to do actually makes sense in the market? And that's where idea validation
Okay.
comes to play. So the first thing you need to understand probably is your idea something that people will pay for?
There
So
you
there are
go.
two kinds of ideas. There are ideas that's so out of this blue that many people don't even understand the model. For example, Airbnb when it was created,
Yeah.
Uber. Once in 5 years, there are ideas that are so crazy, you don't even know if it's going to make money, right?
Correct.
But there are ideas wherein you already have people paying for a service, and you just need to do something better, faster, more efficient. Once you have an idea to improve that, then you're closer to something that will probably make money. So
Got it.
so that's my first advice to
Okay.
the play. Like, you want to do a startup, look at something that's already in the market, because that means someone's already paying for it. For example, a party file. People were probably bribing the bouncers already in
Yes.
the clubs, right?
Right.
Party file just is an easier version of that. So the validation there is, are people actually paying to get into the clubs? The answer was
Right.
yes. They just needed an app version of it. So that's why Party File worked, right?
Correct.
Because they were already, I remember Republic, there were lines and everyone wanted
yeah.
to get into the
My
club.
old life.
Right? So
Yes.
and then chatbot, like when chatbots were being created, there was people were asking how to create that. There was already a demand. They were asking devs, and then chatbot basically
Automated that.
automated and basically was able to address that that demand by creating the supply. So that's my first advice. A lot of people think startups is just all these crazy esoteric ideas. Sure, there is like, I want to go to Mars, like Elon Musk, right? Or
Yeah.
have a nice electric car that doesn't look like a golf cart, which is Tesla,
Yeah.
right? So those are very esoteric ideas, but and no one knows if someone's willing to pay to go to Mars, right? That's a very crazy idea. That's why what
Right.
Elon Musk is trying to do is, what's the lower goal? So he's trying now to do SpaceX between cities. He's saying, I can fly from Los Angeles to Shanghai in 30 minutes.
Yes.
So I'm sure, how do you know someone's going to pay for that? Because there was the Concorde. Remember in the
Right,
1960s?
right.
We did have the Concorde. The problem that plane was so noisy. It was their sonic boom was destroying the.
Got it.
So in other words, we know even in the 1960s there is a demand for supersonic flight. So
It's just not. It's too early for its time.
yeah, but now there's like so much travel, and I'm sure businessmen
Right.
who want to be able to just fly in and out of countries. They
Right.
probably pay a $10,000 flight on
Yeah.
SpaceX, and it's also virtual signaling, right? They want to tell their peers, oh, I can be in Shanghai in 30 minutes, right? And pay 10,000, right?
True.
So that's my first advice. Like, sure, have a startup idea, but
Look at what else there.
yeah, look out how people are paying
Doing
for
it
it.
already.
In fact,
Okay.
it might not be intuitive. For example, I remember I was in Boracay, and then I was taking selfie, right? And what happened was, like the waves just came in, and basically, my phone got destroyed, right?
Oh shit.
So, when you think about it, did I pay for the service? Sure, I paid for it because now I have to buy a new phone. So, guess what's the idea? What's the idea around that? You have GoPro. So, so now people buy GoPro because you can do the same thing. You
The
can
action
do a
shots.
selfie with your camera, but it's waterproof. It can be mounted. So that I realized, wow, that idea came from there. But I didn't latch onto it. For
Got
me,
it.
it was just an accident. But
Right.
when you think about it, how many people with cameras or phones had it washed away in
Yeah.
Boracay and they never invented the GoPro?
Correct.
Right. So
It was right there in plain sight. Just,
yeah. So think of experiences you are paying for
Okay.
it by either you're paying for it with money, you're paying for it by now you now have to buy a new phone, or you now have to go through certain steps, and instead of being able to do it within a week, now it's gonna take you like 6 weeks, a year. What are those things? And those are the ideas maybe that people are willing to pay for. Now they'll push money, just throw money at you because they just want to make their life less painful.
Got it. Okay. Now, after you do have a look around and whatnot, and you have an MVP. Okay. So I see what people are doing. What's the next step?
So now, once you have the idea, now you have to test it and like create at least a prototype. So a good example would be like, for example, Instagram. If you wanted to test Instagram, how would you have done that? Maybe I'll set up a photo booth somewhere, take a photo, and then use a filter and say, hey man, I'm gonna set up a filter over your photo. Are you willing to pay $1 for this? So you need to do like a flow, like see how your product will be received by people, and
Got it.
see if they can actually like test the idea, right? And if there's like a flow, there's interest,
Okay.
then you can probably put in a little bit of money now and turn it in to
Got
the
it.
app. The thing is, this validation, like talking to people, a lot. I realize when we go to startup weekends, this is the part that Filipinos don't really like,
Because
because Filipinos were naturally indirect. We're not really shy,
Okay.
but we're indirect. So we don't really want to tell people, hey man, do you really like this? But so a lot of them, they will like pay for other people to do a study
Yeah.
or do a survey, when being there themselves, while they're talking to people, while they're receiving criticism or while they're talking, that's when the insight actually clicks, right?
Got
When
it.
like now we have certain startups, like there are things that the customer is telling me and saying, hey, why don't you do this and do that? And that allows you to tweak your product along the way. So why is this valuable? Because imagine if you created that app
okay.
and then now you have to change the feature in that app because you didn't listen to the customer.
Okay.
It's more expensive, right? But if you actually listen to the customer first, listen to it a few hundred times,
Yeah.
then by the time you create the app, you would have enough insight, and you know at least 80-90% of the things that they really want would be there. It's like glorified focus group discussion, but
Got it.
instead of normally focus group, you ask people to come, right?
Right.
This one, you're the one going where the action is, for you to be able to experience viscerally how they're receiving your idea or your prototype, the
Okay.
product prototype.
Now, my question is, because it can be, I've seen a lot of people do this too, but they get overwhelmed also with a lot of too much data, and they didn't know what to do with that
Yes,
per
okay.
se. So is there a structure to properly get that data and make proper decisions to this?
Okay. So when I do this in a corporate setting,
Okay.
I have to set,
Corporate page man.
yeah.
Mhm.
I have to set up the history for this, meaning
Okay.
what we're actually doing is an experiment. So a lot of people don't realize what an experiment is. An experiment basically is you're testing one thing.
Okay.
You're testing one variable. What you're talking about, say they get overwhelmed a lot of things.
Right.
Most of the time, it's either they don't have a variable or they have two variables. Having two variables is messed up because when you're doing the experiment and you have two variables, you don't know which of the variable actually created the action.
Yes.
That's what they call confounded, right? The result is confounded. So what you need to do is set up an experiment wherein there is only one variable. So
Okay.
how do you say this? For example, you have a prototype
Okay.
and you want to experiment on price. So what
Okay.
you need to do is ask people to if they want to buy it, but you're just changing the price. So if you're deliberate about that, you will understand exactly the price elasticity of your product because you're only experimenting with one variable. You
So
can
don't
even
do two. Just
you
have
can,
one.
because it's
Okay.
unless you're a brilliant mathematician, man, and you're able. There is a way, right? But
Right.
in fact, that's a physics problem, the three-body problem, right? Meaning, when three variables, like how do you even know how each other is affecting? So, if you can set up your startup experiment with one variable, you should. That's the best way. And if you can't, then there's probably something wrong with
Got it.
your methodology because that means you don't understand your product well enough that you can break it down to the point that there's only one variable that you're testing, and that one variable is what you need to learn. So
Got it.
like I'm sure we do A/B testing, right?
Right.
I mean, change one word, change one phrase,
Got
so
it.
at least you know what's good.
Now, I remember one thing that you used in one of the things that I've seen you do it for. It's from the Lean Startup Movement, the Javelin board.
Yes,
This provides, this is still, I did this myself. When I was starting
Yeah.
Partyfile, when I did a pivot from guestlist.ph to Partyfile, I put this in the board of
Yeah.
ProudCloud back then.
Yes.
And people was like, what the fuck are you doing, Ron? And whatnot. But it provided a structure
Yes.
on what. So again, remember this, javelin.com. It provided a structure over how I do my experiments, what type of variables I'll put.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily mean I have to build product right
Yes.
away, because there's now this such a thing called the no-code movement.
Yeah.
Even. Can you provide a little bit of context to this?
Well, there's kind of a joke in the no-code movement. Everyone's saying like, okay, would you like to revisit Dreamweaver? So,
Or Wix?
I mean, so sure, I think there is value in what no-code is doing, and if you just need something out and you can't afford to
Yeah.
get a dev team, at least the no-code movement has all these tools that will allow you to create your prototype.
MVP, yeah.
your minimum viable product, so that you have a way to test it.
Yeah.
So the goal of all this is you need to be able to test this.
Right.
Either test it by talking to people, test it with a rough prototype, or test it with the prototype app. You actually have an app which is the no-code. Once you are able to do it, then you have a way to measure, and that's what you put into your Javelin board. So the Javelin board basically is, it allows you to understand when you need to pivot.
Yes.
So
Pivot or persevere.
Yeah, pivot or persevere. So,
Yeah.
and you have to be, here's the thing, you need to tell yourself what is the threshold. So people
Yes.
ask me, Paul, when do you pivot or persevere? I said, it depends on your risk profile. Some people, for example, Elon Musk, he's willing to bet on something that will succeed 1%. But
Yeah.
not a lot of people has intestinal fortitude as an Elon Musk that
Yeah.
will put all his money and savings into something that will succeed 1%.
Correct.
Most people, I'm guessing, if the idea is 70 or 80%, then they will continue. So put that. That's what you actually. That's the missing part on most Javelin boards. You say,
Right.
you put 70. That's the lower threshold.
Right.
So now when you test it, you say to yourself, if 7 people I get this response from 7 people, then I persevere.
Yes.
Okay. But you have to be honest, if it's 6,
No, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
Or you pivot.
because if you don't, then you're being dishonest with yourself, because
Correct.
that's the 7 out of 10 represents your own risk profile.
Yes.
What happens is, if you continue doing that and you have a very complicated app already and you're testing it, somewhere along down the road, the risk profile will kick you in your derriere, because you risk, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
Well, remember, you said you'll only continue when you do 7. Now it's 6, right? And now that feeling in your stomach, I don't
Right.
want to do this anymore. I think
Correct.
this is so risky. Where did that come from? Because you did not, honor your commitment to yourself by the javelin board, by saying, I will only do this if I do 7 out of 10. So
Correct.
if you go back to the javelin board, it will allow you to pivot either who your customer is,
Yes. Or the solution.
what problem
They're
they
trying to
have,
solve.
and
Right.
what solution. So those are, and remember, that's the other thing. Most people who do the javelin board, if they do 2 things, I'm trying to solve,
Yeah.
then they get messed up. So you need to
Right.
start somewhere. What is the problem? Then deep dive, iterate over that. Once you figure out what the problem is, the customer first, and then what is their problem and what is their solution. Then what you do is you just pivot over those things, one aspect at a time. You only pivot either the customer, the problem, and the solution. Never 2 things. Then
the same
otherwise you
time.
get all this, this
You're confused.
panic face,
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah. What the fuck is going on?
And then you look at the javelin board. Hey, you actually did 2 things. You were like,
Right.
so it's a little bit. You need to be a little bit disciplined about it. But I think it will help a lot of startups if they even do that practice. And the good thing is, javelin's free.
Yes. And
When
there's a
you-
walkthrough to this. And by the way, that walkthrough is going to be in hustleshare.com in the show
Yeah.
notes of this episode. So if you're confused, like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Don't worry.
Yeah.
We got you. It's going to be there.
And then the other one I also give down to you. Once you have you have an app and you're already testing it, you can go a little bit more complicated. There is a tool called the DE Toolbox, the Disciplined Entrepreneurial Toolbox.
Okay. Now let's take our quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, let's talk about the big DE.
Okay.
Okay. But let's talk about that more after the break. Hey guys, it's a brand new season, and I want to share you another brand new lesson that I learned through my 10 years of hustling as a startup founder. See, one of the biggest mistakes that early stage startup founders usually do is creating a product that they haven't validated and allocating resources based on hypotheses that they haven't tested. And don't worry, because I've made this mistake several times as well. I remember back in my first startup called Partyfile, I invested all my life savings to developing a website with a developer that I hired without validating anything. And guess what happened? Yep, it did not work. And now I was stuck with a website that nobody wanted to use, and I did not have the resources to edit the site and add more features that people actually care about. Now, luckily, there are a lot of sites now and resources that you can use to not make the same mistake. And one of them is Tag Cash. The beauty about Tag Cash is that it's already an existing platform that you can just replicate, especially if you have a fintech play and you want to build on the blockchain. So if you need features like deposit, spending, charging, transferring, disbursements, and all the way to withdrawing money, you can use Tag Cash to now validate your ideas very fast. Now, the cool thing is Tag Cash is actually looking for startups to support, especially those ones that support a certain community. One perfect example is Society 8, wherein before they used to write checks for all their merchants that they support, but now they do that automatically within the Tag Cash app that they have, and also they were now able to scale to over 24 locations. So if you're interested to start using Tag Cash in your startup, just go to www.hustleshare.com/tagcash and fill up the form and tell us how are you going to use Tag Cash to build your own super app for your startup. So again, that's hustleshare.com/tagcash. And you'll never know, you just might get your funding there too. Hey hustlers, let's take a quick break to to discuss one very valuable and expensive lessons that I have learned through my journey as a startup founder. You see, back when I first built my nightlife app called Partyfile, I chose to be frugal at the wrong things and allocated my very limited resources on things like dev work without taking into consideration how users will use our app when we launch. And I was so enamored with the idea that once I got the app out in the App Store and people started downloading it, I won't have any problems anymore. And I was so wrong. Because it's already hard and super expensive to acquire users to use your MVP, and it's even more expensive to keep users in using an app that crashes because you chose to use the wrong service. Now, luckily, there's a solution to this problem that will not break the bank, which is AWS. The beauty about AWS is it's not just the most comprehensive and broadly accepted cloud platform where the world's most successful companies use it, it is also very startup friendly. Why? Because it has the most functionalities, so whatever you're trying to build in whatever architecture or language, it's certain that it's going to work. They are also flexible where you only pay for what you use so that your servers can also expand when you have that spike of users and your app or website will not crash. Now we're not gonna leave you salivating here without hooking you up to try what we're talking about yourself. We're hooking you up with 1,000 USD worth of free credits, that's 50,000 pesos, from AWS that you can use to build your tech there now. All you have to do is apply at hustleshare.com/AWS and fill up the form to apply to get your $1,000 free credits now. Okie dokes, let's get back to the show. And we're back from the break. We're still with PageMan, Paul Pajo. Is PageMan still your name on your socials? Not anymore.
Yeah, on Twitter.
On Twitter. At PageMan. That's
Yeah.
him. Okay. All right. PageMan is spelled as PageMan.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Paul, before the break, you talked about the DE toolbox. I've never heard of this because I've been using Javelin and I didn't do that. And there's one thing about Javelin that you kind of said already prior, the risk threshold. I remember they call it the minimum success criteria.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, just to again summarize what Paul said, right? If you're trying to create an experiment, guys, remember, it's an experiment, it's a hypothesis. It's not yet a fact. It's not validated. You're making an experiment to validate your theory.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're Filipino, churi, you're churi, right? Basically,
right.
You create like, all right, if I do this, if X is X, I need to hit 5 out of 10 to do that. Then there's 3 types of things you need to do. There's pre-sell, forgot the other 2, but these are the experiments you need to do.
Yeah.
However, there's one common denominator that you need to do to validate it. It's called getting out of the building.
Yes, you need to get out of the building.
Right. You cannot solve a fucking experiment by being on your fucking desk. You need to talk to real users. So if you're shy, I'm sorry. You need to fucking get out of the building.
That's
because
true.
if you're not going to get real feedback, bruh, you're again double downing on a hypothesis that's doomed to fail. And whatnot. Now, in DE Toolbox, what is the structure of that?
Yeah. So let's go back to the Javelin, right?
Okay.
So if you don't go out of the building, that's actually a very good test of who you need to be with. So that, like you were during the break, you were saying like, who do I need to be with? The thing is, if your friends or potential co-founders don't even want to go out with you, that's a very good test. Who you need to be with. That means they're probably not interested in that problem. It's not because they don't like you, but they probably want to solve something else, right? The other thing is, you need to normalize the minimum success criteria. What does that mean? If your risk profile is 6 over 10, and your co-founders is 7 out of 10, you can't go with the idea that 6 out of 10.
Right.
Why? Because eventually down the road, your co-founder who has a
risk tolerance,
lower risk tolerance will walk away from you. Yeah. But you knew that from the start, right?
Correct.
So if you're not honest even at the start of your Javelin, it's gonna get messed up very, very fast, right?
Correct.
So once you've done this and you're pretty confident, you've iterated over the problem, the customer, the solution, and you have a very good idea, then you can go to the DE Toolbox. The DE Toolbox was designed by Bill Owlett. He has a book called 24 Steps to Disciplined Entrepreneurship.
Boom.
And basically, it's a website. It's free. And basically, you go through like 24 questions. And basically, all you need to do is go through it and make sure everything turns green. So it asks questions like the target addressable market, who's your competitor.
Got it.
So things,
it's a checklist per se.
it's a checklist. And the weird thing is, those are the things that investors will probably ask about. So now I actually use this. Remember, you had expands on Hustle Share, right?
Yes, so shout out to Josh and David.
Yeah,
What
so
up?
I made it like my barrier to entry, like so to speak. Like when people ask me, "Hey, Paul, can you mentor me?" I said,
DA Toolbox.
Yeah, DA Toolbox. and if you're not, and it took them like 2 weeks to answer. I said, Paul, this is so hard. I said, man, if you're not even willing to do something, which is actually for free, you're not.
I will start using that. Oh, Ron, can I ask for your DA Toolbox first? Oh,
Yeah.
show it to me. Okay, we're good.
Yes, and also because now you have talking points. So the good thing is now when you are talking to potential co-founders,
Got it.
or you're trying to get mentors or investors,
Got it.
you can use all the answers in the DE Toolbox as talking points, right?
Okay.
And the thing is, some of the questions there are very hard questions. Like, for example, who are your competitors? You know, when you go to pitches and they answer, we don't have competitors. And you know why they answered that? Because they never even
They didn't
ask-
fucking do their homework.
or they never even asked that question themselves.
I was like, oh, really?
So
Yeah.
during the pitch, they just say, "Oh, don't think we have competitors."
We're one of a kind. We're the only one who thought of this.
So, but see, the DE Toolbox in a way, it's like precluding a question, right?
Yeah.
It's like going into an investor meeting very, very prepared. So
Right.
try it, guys. Like it's free. It's there, and I've used it several times, and I think it makes people more insightful about the stuff. And one of the things is, once you go there, sometimes you realize, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Because when you realize,
You yourself, you pivot.
yeah, like I remember I had a conversation like there was this tutorial startup, and it was gonna hit the K-12, so that it's gonna dry up. So they were like looking at different things, and they said, "Why don't you do this?" And they realized the time was too small.
Okay.
So like the Linda Evangelista thing. I won't wake up for less than $10 million. Like at a certain point, you need to ask yourself, what's your Linda Evangelista amount, right? I
Right.
mean, what amount of money are you willing to wake up for? And if you ask yourself that question via the Toolbox,
Right.
this time is so small. Like, sure, I'll make 20,000-30,000 pesos a month, but this is too small. I mean,
Right.
you could probably do something that you really, really like that makes a lot more money for you, and you'll be happier rather than do something that you know yourself. But
It's not gonna work, right?
And this is eternal. Different people have different. But that's the thing. You need to ask those questions because otherwise you'll be demotivated along the way. And like you said, you'll probably pivot yourself and say, "This is such a small market. This isn't something I want to solve, right?" Or there's just too many people solving this problem. When I did the competitor study, I'm better off doing something where no one is there, like a blue ocean strategy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. Because if it's too saturated and you're one of a million and you're gunning after a fucking million, then in the perfect world, you're going to get one customer each. And it's not going to be worth it.
Unless you're convinced that what you do will actually disrupt everyone. I think like when you did Party File, no one was doing it. And no one, probably someone could have.
No, there was, but I guess
they didn't have your connections.
Yeah.
They didn't have your magic. So if you think you have that special thing, go for it. And that's the thing. Like, who do you want to go with, right? These are people when you say, "Hey, let's go," and they go with you.
Correct.
If they say, let's go out, they don't go out in the building with you. They don't have the same risk profile with you.
Right.
Then that's a very good test from the big. And the good thing is you can find this out for free, pre-incorporation.
Yeah, you don't have to give them equity. As if a couple episodes ago, Mel Nava made of one export said this, that she shouldn't have incorporated with the people she met with during startup weekend right away
Yep.
as co-founders. if had she known that, so this shit happens,
Yeah.
that I there even if you pivot your product, you also pivot your team.
Yes.
Because not everybody is going to be a fit, and even at a later point, for example, everything went well for 2 years, but eventually people grow out of the whole thing, that the buy-in's no longer there.
Yeah.
You have to also pivot the team. Okay, now Paul, I want to cite certain examples. I'm pretty sure the reason why you're here is because I don't know anybody who knows as many startups as you do, right?
Really?
And a deep dude, you've talked to a lot of them, like people will gravitate towards you for advice. Give me a perfect example of a startup that's successful now or otherwise, here in the Philippines, or what you've seen, that was able to validate their problem right away or their solution right away to where they are. And what did they do to get that done?
I think, like we talked about Expanse, right?
Yeah, let's talk about Expense. Okay.
When you think about it, when they did a competitor study, most of their competitors are single logistics. And you know why? Because that's their secret sauce, right? Meaning what they're doing is they're creating an API from the front end, the website, to the delivery.
Yes.
And I know this because I used to do API management for a telco before.
Right.
So doing that interface is brutal. That's very hard. Like if you don't know how to do it, and that because you're talking to another company and you're integrating, so it's two things, right? All the delivery from the site, and then you're integrating it to a delivery, and let's say minimum 10,000 SKUs. Imagine the patience. You need the patience of job to connect that. So most startups will do it once.
Yeah.
Expanse was able to do it for 4.
Wow.
So that means they already found their market, right? Meaning they knew the pain point was based on the competitor study alone that there weren't enough people doing the integration.
Got it. And that was the pitfall always, that from a website, from checkout all the way to the logistics partner.
It's manual. It's manual most people. It's manual in the middle. There's like, I call it a monkey in a battleship.
Got
they
it.
just monkeys in battleship, like doing this manual thing,
like Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, and that's what's creating the error. So the key is to automate that. But that's the thing. How many people are willing to automate that? So one integration with one logistics partner is brutal already because each logistic partner is different. So here's the thing. Who do you partner with? Who are the people who are crazy enough to do that? So when I looked at them, I said, well, if you're crazy enough to do this, there's probably people who are willing to pay for this.
So basically, just to dumb it down for those people who don't understand what an API is, think of it like it's like a USB connector. It's like the USB cable, right? Some people have a square USB cable. Some people have a triangle one, blah, blah, blah. Your cable should be able to fit everything.
Yes.
It's like a Swiss knife, right? Because if that doesn't connect to each other, and that's where they were able to validate that, our competitors are actually not the logistics.
Yeah.
The competitors don't play the middle game.
Yes.
Because even after you check out, somehow, some way, some person is gonna manually process that order in the middle of nowhere and give it to the logistic partner for delivery.
Yeah. So they figured that out and they realize it's very, very, very hard. That's the other thing. Like I tell people, if you have the intestinal fortitude for it, you should at least try to do something very hard because then it creates a moat. So for example, in what Coins did and SCI did, all these people in crypto, like what they were doing was very hard. Like if you did an Ethereum wallet, a Bitcoin wallet, all that stuff engineering wise is very hard. So the very fact you even tried to do that, if you're the first or the second, you at least have a stake in the ecosystem. And I think in the case of Expanse, they're the only ones doing a multiple logistics play. And in fact, they're the only ones, one of the few that does the API play. So for them, that creates a moat for them.
Got it. And that, dude, it's going to be hard for any new player to catch up. And that's what good businesses do.
Yes.
Okay, screw those people like, but you're a monopoly. people don't become monopolies by accident.
Monopsony. That's the
Monopsony. What is a monopsony?
like you're the only buyer for it.
Correct, because they're the only one who had the balls actually to solve that problem. So again, like for example, Angkas. I mean Grab for a while. Hate on them all you want for being a monopoly right now, the way it seems. But dude, they put in the work to be the actually. I don't consider them as a monopoly. They're the last survivor that actually figure out the biggest problem of them all.
Maybe another example would be Quickwire.
Okay, so how did Ray Rifundo and team do this?
Quickwire solution was there was a lot of OFWs that wanted to pay for their real estate. You buy property in the Philippines,
and they didn't get this at first because they were trying to do something different totally before.
So but when you're outside, I used to be outside the country for like 8 years. So I used to live in Afghanistan.
Holy shit! I didn't know this.
Burma, Dubai. So sending money. Cross border. So imagine in those years, 1997, sending money towards the Philippines is a very hard problem.
Right.
And if you're sending a large amount of money for your real estate payments, it's gonna hurt a lot, right? And I think what they realized was once we call it the first miracle, right?
Right.
Once you have your first miracle, when they got DMCI, I think once they got their first developer company. Real estate, not software, right? Once they get, then it's just a matter of duplicating that sales process to everyone. And here's the thing: once you do that, the real estate company doesn't really need another payment provider, right? Because
as long as you solve that problem well.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's an example of a very good pivot. They pivoted, and then they realized no one. In fact, up to now, no one else. The weird thing is there's so many people in fintech, but no one wants to do that. And that's like, there's probably a few other real estate companies. Like I know at least someone who has two. His father has one. He has his own.
Yeah.
And they're not even in Quickwire.
Got it.
So in other words, like, there's probably a room for one or two more players, but maybe it's so hard.
Yeah, they made it. They executed so well and they validated so well that it's going to be hard to penetrate it. Right. Or if there are, it's not even close. Like what they can do because they've created such a big moat that if you fall into those cracks, the big Quickwire crocodile will eat you up. Now, on the flip side, Paul, before we end this really interesting playbook, give me an example of a startup that validated an MVP that didn't do it well.
Okay. Maybe you're familiar with Merge Commit.
Merge Commit.
With James Florentino.
Yes. Okay.
So, what he realized was, and I was trying to convince him to do like only a Bitcoin only platform because everything is there now, like Liquid, Taproot, Lightning Network.
Right.
But he was doing it on like I think multiple currency, and at one point he really had a product. Like
he was making a lot of traction too.
In fact, there was a few. I think there was a few entities who wanted to get his solutions and exchanges, and I was talking to him. But what he realized was, now. When I looked at his blog, right, and I think LinkedIn, he said he had so much difficulty as a founder that he decided to quit what he was doing in Merge Commit and decided to do the productivity suite that would enable a founder to actually do the stuff that he really need to do. So it was like a meta insight. So it's like he realized I could do this, but this is so hard and I don't have the tools to do this. So he basically, and then maybe he looked at the crypto and said, like what's happening is like the Bitcoin platforms are pulling away very fast, right? And realize what I'm building, it's not going to catch up very fast, and I'm going to build from scratch. So he realized what founders like him actually needed is a productivity suite that will allow a founder, which is cool. When I realized that, wow, if he finishes whatever product he's making, man, he's gonna. You probably be interviewing him here, and
no, he will be here, and
do a playbook on that later, right? So that's an example where he realized what the problem was. He knew that it was time for him to give up and move into an entirely different ecosystem and problem and solve that.
And one thing I liked about him, just a little bit of sidestep here, is he also came clean that he fucked up.
Yeah,
that is so brave of him to do.
Yeah.
and posted it public.
Yeah.
I did it myself. I didn't
Yeah.
post it. Someone fucking dug it. I actually know who it is now. Christian Blanquer dug it up. Posted it on Fackers. That's Slack Fackers. God. Okay, so now I know. Right? Do you remember that eulogy I wrote for Party? I didn't have the balls to share that. He had the balls to share his fuck up.
Yeah.
And it's just only a matter of time till he bounces up. So, James, if you're listening to this, keep going.
Yeah.
I love what you do.
And normally, those more statistically, the more successful founders are those who are doing their second or
Yep.
third one,
Yep.
right? Because,
We fucked up before.
and in fact,
Yeah.
his insight is so meta because
Right.
he's actually creating, his startup is creating the tool that will enable a new founder, which was him in Merge Commit,
Right.
to be more successful by having all the tools. So I don't know what that is, but just the
Watch
insight,
out.
just the insight is amazing, right? He said, I realized this is the tool that I should have built. But here's the thing, he wouldn't be building the tool now if he didn't like mess up the first
Got
time,
it.
right?
But-
he needed this experience to actually give him the insight for his next startup.
All right. Last question. Let's go to the extreme. How do you know if it's not an idea worth pursuing anymore? Because, some people, let's go, keep pushing, hustle hard. We never give up. But there are just ideas that, no, it's dead in the water.
Okay.
Don't do that anymore. It doesn't make sense. What would you advise those people who are stuck in that? Because sometimes pushing something that doesn't work only just causes you more trouble. And it's all right to just step back and like, all right,
Yeah.
I quit. Let's learn from this. Whatever.
I read an essay by Paul Graham before when he said, if you're doing something else other than your startup, then it's done.
Okay.
So you say, well, I'm going to do my startup, but I'm going to do an MBA. Oh, I'm going to do my startup, but I'm going to be an insurance agent. Once you add something to that, you're done. Because we all know how hard a startup is, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to consume you. You won't have a social life.
Right.
So if you're doing anything on top of that, you're probably running a zombie startup. And it for me, I understand why some people don't wanna kill their startup because
Right.
while they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do next, they want to be able to tell people that they're still in the startup. Because in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing? So me, like I just early retired, right? What are you doing? So if you
People
said-
like labels.
yeah, if I said I'm not doing anything, I'm semi-retired.
Right.
They can, what does it mean? So now I have to
Yeah.
explain. But if I just tell them, I'm starting a new VC fund.
Yeah.
I'm doing an AI
Right.
accelerator.
Right.
So I'm thinking some people, if they're really honest enough, they just don't want to close their startup because it's a very good placeholder
Yeah.
until they figure out what to do next. But if you're doing, that's the test. If you're doing anything other than your startup, then it's probably done.
Correct. And here's the thing, though. A little caveat: don't take that don't take that super literally. If you're starting out, make sure I'll have to double down here. Your startup is your priority.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you don't do anything else. Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, for example, I did the way I did chatbot. Chatbot was my number one priority. That was it. If push comes to shove, I would drop everything for that. However, I had to do some shit on the side to survive.
True.
But at the end of the day, my priority is my startup.
Yeah.
Okay? But what I guess Paul was saying here that if your startup is the second thing now.
Yes.
If I'm a math teacher. Again, no disrespect to
Yeah.
math. I'm just throwing out random shit in here. Math teacher and a startup founder.
Yeah.
Just because you want to stroke your ego and you don't want to let go of a startup that didn't push through, it's best to just cut the losses, step back, be at peace with yourself, write it down, come clean, learn from it, try it again.
If you found out like half of the time you're prioritizing something else, then
Yes.
you can do, or my advice is do something meta, like what happened to James, right?
Yeah.
Like he decided to build a startup on what he thought he needed. So like if you're
Got
a
it.
math teacher, you probably want to do like a plug-in or whatever, like do something that will help you as a math teacher.
Got
Like
it.
do Moodle.
Right.
Moodle plugins like that will help you, because if that's what you're passionate about and that's what you really want to wake up doing every day, that's your Linda Evangelista thing, then
Yeah.
build your startup based on what you're passionate about.
Got it. All right, Paul. Unfortunately, we have ran out of time. But Paul, before we let you go, if they want to seek your advice, since you're semi-retired, but he's still hustling out there. How do people find you and where do they go?
So I'm on Twitter. My DMs are open at Pageman, Pageman. I'm also on LinkedIn, Paul Pajo, Paulpajo. And I'm on Facebook, Paul Amerigo, PaulAmerigo. So yeah, just message me. I'm more than willing to help anyone there. I have new hustles.
There you go. And he is
Happening.
a fountain of startup knowledge. This guy has been here longer than I have. But that's not disrespect, because he comes with legit and he comes in raw. He doesn't bullshit with you, right? And that's why he's here on the third playbook of Hustle Share. Again, Paul, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, and I'll see you guys in the next playbook. Peace.